Once I swam across the water, I fell in your arms and found relief. So just look right at me and do not say a thing.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Treesreach podcast. I'm Riley.
I'm Dillon.
And I'm Luke.
So if you can't tell, we are in a bit of a different format this week and probably for the next few weeks because of stricter laws regarding the quarantine. So we will be doing a Zoom meeting today. And honestly, we've done some test recordings and it's kind of fun. I kind of like the format, so
Yeah.
who knows? So today is episode 3, and we will be talking about track 3, which is Lover Lover on our album. So if you haven't heard the song, go check it out. It's on our website and on YouTube for free. You can listen to it there. Otherwise, if you use Spotify or any streaming stuff, it should be on there as well. It's treesreach. Some night you will hear me crowing. So, I thought of a kind of a fun fact about this song that we can start off with.
Oh,
which
neat.
is
Oh,
the title, Lover Lover, is nowhere in the lyrics of the song. It's actually pulled from a later song on the album called 7 Stories, where the exclamation Lover Lover is in the chorus, which is a bit of a little trick we did to kind of tie the songs together. They're thematically related as far as the story we're telling goes. So I thought that was interesting.
That is interesting. I'd forgotten about that. Yeah.
Yeah, we did a few tricky things like that as far as pulling lyrics from songs for titles, or pulling chord progressions from songs and
Mhm.
incorporating them in others. So that's just kind of another way that we tried to connect the dots with this album, connect songs and pull things together. So the structure of this song, if you haven't heard it, is it's in kind of a wonky time signature. It's in 5/4 time, which means it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, which is kind of strange. We're used to groupings of 3 or 4. It's piano led, and it kind of has a structure we like to use where the song goes steady for a while with instrumentation. We kind of add some new things, and then towards the end we just explode into a prolonged climax. So that's the structure of the song, and let's dig into it. Dylan, do you want to kind of give us the history? You wrote the song, you sing it, so let's hear it.
Yeah. So it's funny sometimes with these songs on Some Night. We've kind of touched on this before in the previous 2 episodes, but this album does have a really long history, probably starting from when I was in high school, 10th or 11th grade, which is now about 10 years ago. And
Wow.
I remember writing the song that ended up being Lover Lover probably when I was in 11th grade. And that's a little bit misleading because really you hear a melody at the beginning and a melody at the end that we used in Lover Lover, but the main body of the song didn't come till probably 2014 or so. But I did want to play for you guys. So here's the thing. I wrote this melody that I'm about to play for you way back when, just to reiterate some of the history of the album, we recorded a whole version of what became Some Night You Will Hear Me Crowing with a different drummer named David, who I was in a band with, and that's the band that Riley joined. And then Luke wasn't added on till later. So when it was just David and me writing this album, I'd written this tune that was basically going to be the theme of the whole album. And over the years, we just kind of fizzled out of using it. I think the last song that it was really prominent this melody was really prominent in was cut out kind of in the last couple years before the album was released, and we replaced it with something different that was more effective. But I'm going to play that song for you that you will recognize as being from Lover Lover, but it's outside of it was its own song. It was its own statement before, but it goes like this. Can loop back there, but
Wow, I haven't heard the second half of that melody in years.
yeah,
I
it has a
forgot
whole
that it
B
was-
section
Yeah.
that just never ended up on the album, and
Wow.
it's one of those weird things. Like, it's funny the things that you forget in a long album making process. I've actually been uncovering a lot of this stuff recently, going back. I went into an old notebook of mine just yesterday and was finding old lyrics for songs that never made it onto the album, and
Oh.
it's kind of a treasure trove. And then stumbling across old tracks on a computer or something that's like, oh man, I haven't listened to this in a long time. And we'll probably, I want to get more into that melody when we get to talking about Some Night You'll Hear Me Crowing Part 1, because that melody factors into that song a lot too, before we changed it, because it even has like a C and a D section that you never hear.
Wow.
So and then this all brought to my attention that Lover Lover is a first instance of a lot of things. I was kind of realizing as I was thinking about the song too. So it's the first time we hear the instance of the main theme of the album, which we'll point out. But the main motif of the album is and you hear that all over the place throughout the album, and this is the first time you hear it. And it's basically the theme of the guy, like it's the guy's kind of theme. And I'm sure we'll talk more about that too as the album progresses and elements of the story become more relevant to the individual songs. But so it's the first time you hear that theme, and it's just written into the string part right at the end. It's the first time you hear the piano that was used on a majority of the songs on this album, which we recorded at Cedar Valley Bible Church. They have a grand piano there that we used. It's the first instance of what is a very common type of song on this album, which is an old song that had lyrics and we had recorded. And then once Luke joined and we decided we wanted to re-record all the drums, we use it as an opportunity to, okay, let's also rewrite these lyrics that we were never happy with. And so it's an old song with brand new lyrics. And it's the first time hearing any orchestral elements on the album, which end up becoming a really big deal. So that's all interesting stuff. I kind of want to listen to, okay, here's one interesting fact though too, while I'm sitting at my piano. This song, the intro you hear on the album is etc. So Riley, do you remember when we first when we were recording the pianos for this song, the intro was different, but we had to change it because there was a note in the piano that was like buzzing and rattling really bad. So I had to rewrite the intro to avoid playing that note.
I remember a range of notes I thought that were
really
kind of rattling.
terrible. because the original intro was a.
And were those triads really rattly?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I had forgot about that. Wow.
Oh, here's an interesting thing about the part writing, though. Speaking of that, so built into this intro, I play that in the left hand. It goes. So that's actually the first place it shows up.
Oh,
Wow.
gotcha.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I like when you were playing the old version. I like the new one. I like what it turned into.
I do too. I think it's more compelling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't realize that you played that, Dillon. I thought we had to hire somebody to play that, but it's very refreshing to know that you played that. I just didn't know. It's crazy. Sounds great.
Yeah, we didn't do a lot of outside hires for the pianos, but it's pretty impressive that Dillon was able to pull that off.
Yeah,
Sorry,
yeah, Dillon.
You guys are dumb, and I don't get this joke, and I don't like it. Anyway, I kind of want to listen to some stuff.
Yeah, what do you want to listen to first?
Gosh, I don't know.
Well,
I was just gonna say, one thing we want to do with this song more than the other songs that we've done is point out some kind of subtler details of what's going on in the whole mix of things, because this is probably the most involved song so far in terms of just number of tracks and stuff you don't notice, you more just kind of feel it. So we want to point out some of those things that you may not have noticed. So Riley, what were you going to say?
I was going to say we could look at the piano once it kind of falls under all the other instruments.
Yeah.
The piano and the bass at kind of the end.
Yeah, definitely. Let's do it.
Yeah. So here's the full song when it kind of reaches its peak. And so the piano kind of falls underneath everything there, but it'd be kind of interesting to listen to that soloed and kind of see what all is going on under there, because there's a lot of the energy of the song is within that.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the bass and the piano here at the end. I think the bass does a really cool entrance thing. So listen for that here. I love those little licks the bass is doing in there towards the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was your idea, Rick. I think that because I was recording the bass for that, and I don't remember what I was doing at first, but it just wasn't quite selling it. And then I think you
were doing the same licks, but you weren't following the bass note down with the piano.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And so switching to that just really sold that part. Here's a fun fact. So I recorded the bass part for this song, and I never get to play it live because I have to play the piano part, because that's,
I get to play the bass
and
part.
Riley gets to play that,
and it's
that
so fun.
bomb bass part, and I love.
So much fun.
Can we listen to the bass and the piano maybe right when the bass comes in, because this is one of my favorite bass lines I've ever written.
Yeah,
it's so satisfying.
Your arms and found relief.
Sorry.
I forgive you. Yeah.
Really simple, but it does the
Mhm.
trick.
Yeah, it seems I like trying to find a way to make that 5/4 not feel like an odd time signature. Like you so, and I think the way to kind of sell any odd time signature, at least in my mind, is to write parts for it that are really singable. So it's like they couldn't. It's like you think about the ba 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 ba, or what's the Mission Impossible theme? I think I might have just been doing Incredibles. So, hey guys, we likely just cut out a portion where we briefly listened to the Mission Impossible theme. A, because we don't have the rights to it and we'll get zucked. And B, because we were all singing along with it and we just realized that on Zoom that will not line up in the audio. But yeah, so the Mission Impossible theme has the ba 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 ba. That's in 5/4. And so I like the idea of in order to, but there's nothing tricky about that. You can sing that and it's pretty natural, and it's because like the melody itself kind of bears the load of the time signature. It doesn't feel like a normal melody like tacked on to an odd thing. So that's how I was feeling about writing a lot of the melodies for this. It's same with the main melody, since there's so much movement in the piano, having a melody that could just stay kind of put and be whole notes lasting through the measure.
Yeah,
Helps sell it.
cool. Do we want to point out these the little noodly bits?
Yeah, you talk about the noodly bits, Riley.
Yeah. So one of the early things we recorded, I think we were still recording at Music Loft. We recorded these kind of, I don't know what else to say other than like noodly guitar and Rhodes parts that come in verse 2, which sounds like this in the song.
So just look right at.
Which you're hearing this in mono through the Zoom compressor, so it's not going to sound great. But if you listen at that point in the song, very faintly underneath everything, you'll hear these guys. And they kind of blend with the piano, I imagine it like the piano has a layer of water on top of it that's rippling, and that's what that sound is.
Nice.
And I can only really pick out little bits of it here and there in the recording, but it's definitely there, and just kind of like a mask on the piano or under the piano. That I doubt anyone has any clue that there's something there, but it's one of those things that I like to think adds a little bit of sparkle, a little bit of magic in there.
Yeah.
There's a few notes in the recording that you can feel jump out of that, and it makes it feel like the piano is a little bit out of control. Like it just hits a note and then it like kind of created another universe for a second, and then like it is just little like details of kind of seafoam or something like that you're just looking at the big picture, so you're not noticing that. But if you do focus on like one point where you keep seeing like a wave cresting, you'll see a lot. Like that's kind of what that detail is like. It's always there, it's always adding to the picture. You would notice if it's gone, but you don't necessarily notice it's there.
Yeah
It's
kind of fun.
I really want to while we're on this train, let's solo the strings part in this song. So like I said at the beginning of the episode, this is the first time you hear any sort of orchestral elements. So we'll listen to the strings, and we'll also point out the horns that happen in this song too. At the risk of ruining some of the magic, I'll just reveal right now that all of the strings for this album were taken from a sample library called Hollywood Strings. So for those of you who may not know, a sample library is a collection of sounds recorded by real musicians playing each note on their instrument one at a time, in various articulations and at various volumes, and then all of that gets collected into its own separate data and expanded into a library of sounds that you can map out onto like a MIDI keyboard, which is where you can record all of your music digitally, but paste it on top of your just playing your digital keyboard are these real actual players. And so they might have, you know, the violin section doing all their notes at once, and then you can do cellos all their notes at once. And so you have this parsed out, manageable orchestra basically at your fingertips. So all the strings for this album were done that way. With a library called Hollywood Strings that we really liked the sound of, and we were able to afford.
So you get all of the benefits of composing whatever you want, but you don't have to pay a professional orchestra to play it. You just play it yourself on a keyboard.
Yes.
And
now that being said, it has limits. There was a lot of stuff I remember we wanted to do, but just the sample library we were using didn't lend itself to the type of stuff we were wanting to do in every instance. So we had to make some compromises. But yeah, so the strings you're hearing on Lover Lover are samples. But then throughout the album, there's real trumpet players, and there's a real oboe player at one point, and a real trombone. Mm-hmm. So it's always a blend of that stuff. So on Lover Lover, all the horns you hear are live players that we recorded, and then the strings are from a sample library. So that being said, let's listen to just the string part solo, because I think it's really cool.
Yeah. And one note I'll add is that these are called Hollywood Strings because they were recorded in the studio in a studio in Hollywood, where like a ton of the movies that like John Williams scored for were recorded in those studios. Mm-hmm. So that's why they have that kind of nostalgic film vibe, because they were recorded in those areas.
They're intentionally recorded to sound like just kind of a classic movie, you know?
Yeah, which is what we wanted. So.
Exactly, yeah.
So here's what they sound like.
Yeah. Beautiful. So let's hit the part where it plays the main motif of the album, because it's kind of just built into the part writing under the melody.
Yeah.
So right here.
Yeah. Right here.
Yeah. So again, that main motif is the. So yeah, we thought it was appropriate for this song where the album really takes off to let that be the introduction of that motif you'll be hearing all over the place. And we'll certainly get back to that.
Yeah. Luke, you want to talk drums on this song?
Sure, I'll talk drums. Unfortunately, I have been informed that we do not have the stems for the drums, so we cannot listen to the individual tracks. But that's okay. I think that they stand out kind of well enough on their own. Little trivia. This is Luke's favorite snare drum sound on our record. I'm using a 1964 Ludwig Pioneer snare drum that I bought for $65 on Craigslist.
All right.
And it's a pretty valuable snare drum. And I didn't really know the value of it when I bought it. I was just like this really cool looking old snare drum. And after I did some research on it, it took me a long time to actually dial it in, and I think I had to clean it before I was actually getting like some usability out of it. But yeah, used it on a few songs on this record, and this is my favorite snare drum sound from the I think just from the snare itself, and then the mixing that we did for the drums in this song. I think all of it brings the thunder. It's got a warm tone to it. The snare response is perfect in my opinion. Yeah. Rick, can you just play it right from when the drums come in? Actually, sounds like Rick just found the stems. So Rick, let's hear it.
Yes, this is the drums alone when they first come in.
Yeah.
Such a good part, Luke. It's a great drum part.
Thank you. We wanted something real. I specifically wanted something textural and hairy, earthy to kind of keep things rolling along in this song that was going to become very ethereal. I think, Dillon, you were reminding me that I originally was doing an eighth note hi-hat groove, but when we got into the studio, the sound wasn't really translating. It wasn't coming through. I think it just felt too hi-hat heavy.
Yeah.
And so, kind of spur of the moment in the studio, I decided to alternate or put the ghost notes on the snare drum. And it was difficult because I hadn't practiced that yet. And so what you're hearing in the studio is me essentially practicing and luckily nailing that part. I remember having difficulty trying to keep the groove between my right and left hands on tempo and do the kick pattern. It was difficult, but I think it made the song a lot more textural. Like, it allowed the drum part to breathe more as opposed to like keeping on the eighth notes on the hi-hat.
Yeah.
It expanded the sonicality, I think.
Yeah. Ooh, the sonicality. It blows my mind that. So it's one thing to just hop into a studio and say, okay, I think I'm going to do this kind of a thing for the drum part without having practiced it. And it's just like some normal rock song or whatever. And you can kind of figure that out and probably make that sound pretty convincing. But doing like a pretty involved 5/4 groove, and you're like, maybe this will work. And then it's one of like the tightest drum takes on the whole album. And the snare sounds so good. And you're just right in the pocket and you've like never done it before. It's so good. So good. Yeah. Good. Amazing.
Yeah, that was a good day.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. And your cymbals sound so good on this one too.
Yeah.
Were you using the same cymbals for the whole album? Or what kind of cymbals were you using for this? Do you remember?
I had recently bought some Istanbul agap cymbals, and those were the primary pies that I was using. I did 22-inch ride on my left, 24-inch ride, and a 19-inch crash by Dream cymbals, and then a 15-inch hi-hat.
Hold on, wait. Back up. Is pie slang for cymbal in drummer world?
It is. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Wait, is it slang for hi-hats?
It's slang for any just
cymbal,
any
because it's
cymbal.
like a pie.
Yeah.
That's
Wow.
hilarious
Pie.
that the pizza business and the drummer business both call their product pies.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so does the pie business.
Well, they're not invited to the party, Dylan, obviously.
They're
Not
invited to
pie
any party I have. I'm a pie guy.
All right.
Over cake?
Over cake,
Really?
100%. HUNERED, 100%.
Well, I guess this is something new I didn't know about you, Dylan. I've known you for a lot of years, and
Yeah,
I
I didn't know that either. That's
I just think it's more satisfying. Like, it's more of a treat. I'm not
What
like a
kind of
big,
pie?
Well, any
like
kind
if
of
you
pie
were
you
to
like.
if your birthday was right now,
My birthday was
and,
right now.
and you had to choose any pie,
Well,
what pie
first
would
of
it be?
all, I want to use this opportunity to shout out Kathy's Pies, which is best pie place in town.
That's true.
By far. And from Kathy's Pies, I'll give you maybe a top 3. Just straight up blueberry pie, unreal, unbelievable. And then let's talk about like the peach crumb, unreal, unbelievable. They also have a really good, I don't know if it was seasonal or not, but at one point, actually for my birthday at work, because we all get Kathy's Pies when it's somebody's birthday, I got a caramel latte pie that
sounds pretty good.
Stupid good. It was so good. What?
Really quick, I just want people to know if they want to tip us, they can tip us in Kathy's Pies. We all enjoy French silk. We all enjoy what is that Toll House one as well? The Toll House.
I think I might
one.
actually technically be allergic to Toll House. I think I'm getting more allergic to other nuts as I get older.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, well, don't do that. Only send us French silk pie, no fruit pie. We're not messing around with that stuff.
And while we're on the subject, we also do have a tip jar, like a real tip jar, on our website. If you go to treesreach.com, scroll at the bottom, you can do it there. But pie is also a viable option.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Thanks, Rick.
So here's a few things I want to say. I want to call out our live musicians who played on this song too, who weren't us.
Nice.
Which is, and I'm sorry, Joey, if you're watching this, I don't know how to pronounce your last name. I never learned. I think it's Schoebelen. Joey Schoebelen played the flugelhorns in the middle of this song that come in with the bass and the drums. And at the end, you hear a really beautiful, smooth trumpet rendition of that theme that's played at the beginning, but played in 4/4 time signature over vibraphones. And Jon Fuller played that lead trumpet. And that lead trumpet part over the vibraphones is probably one of my favorite parts of the whole album. I think it's really great the way he executed that.
Thanks, John.
And then the other thing I went and found like I said, this Lover Lover represents probably the most common type of song on Some Night You'll Hear Me Crowing, which is a song that has its roots years and years back. And then later on, like a year before the album released, I and sometimes Riley went back and just completely rewrote the lyrics to actually make it more of a consistent narrative and to make it more poetically satisfying. So I took a big old sketchbook and wrote out in order as best I could just to try to achieve a workflow to get lyrics done.
You hold a little closer.
Yeah. I just
Wow.
started writing out the lyrics in album order as best I could. And when I got stuck, I'd be like, I got to finish it, like figure out how to finish it. And I got into this weird like Zen mind flow where I wrote so many songs. I wrote so many lyrics over the period of a year or so. And it was an unprecedented event. in my typical songwriting flow. And I had a great time. It was a ton of fun. So you'll see right down here is Lover, Lover. And I think it goes up to the top of here as well. And then you get Hello Conscience, right? Yeah. So I just thought that was an interesting thing. I think all the lyrics for the whole album are in this sketchbook here.
I remember when you were
Wow.
writing that.
Yeah, and a lot of the time, I remember writing a lot of this being in Luke's mom's condo, where Luke was
Yeah.
staying at the time, and just being in their living room during the day when no one else was there, and having the windows open, the sun was coming in. I was just writing. So I remember that fondly.
Good.
Also, well, yeah, I think something I do want to start pointing this stuff out, because this will be key as we move on to other songs deeper in the album. It's important to see where the narrator of this album is at this point. So, in Glass Cages, we talked about how there's a melancholy and a dryness to the day, and he doesn't feel the changes that he thinks are supposed to have happened to him. Self-absorbed life is an expression of his self-absorption, I guess. And Lover, Lover is in the guise of a really big kind of theatery love song. But if you actually listen to the lyrics, it's pretty upsetting. It's a very, very conditional love song. Let me stay here next to you, and I will say, I love you too. Like, if you do this thing for me, I will do this thing for you. Basically, it's more of a security song, or kind of a dependency song for his own validation, and he thinks the girl is going to make all the difference in his life or whatever, and that mindset will come back later in the album, so worth talking about.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
Cool. Well, this has been fun, guys. Let's wrap up then. Dillon, what are some things about this song that you still love, and what are maybe, if you have anything that you might do differently if you recorded the song today?
Yeah, so things I still love. I love that bass part, and I love how it's recorded. I used a really cheap Squire bass for most of this album, and there's some songs where it sounds better than others, but I think this is one of the ones where it's, for whatever reason, it's just in that bass's sweet spot, playing in the key of B flat. So it sits in the mix super good. Love the drums. And I still love when the strings swell up at the end. This was one of the first, I think this was the first orchestral part that I arranged for the album. So this was some fresh Dill strings ideas coming through, and I was just really inspired to try. I could hear it so vividly, and I'm glad that it came across. So I'm very proud of that still.
Nice.
And the trumpet bit at the end is fantastic. Things I would do differently. I don't know if I should say this, because maybe nobody notices, and then when I point it out, everybody's going to notice. But I think that I could probably have just sang this a little bit more on key, especially at the end. I'm like writing pretty consistently flat, and it keeps it a little bit grounded for me. It's not so flat that you're like, oh, that's off key, but it's just on the low end of on pitch enough that I kind of wish it would take off a little bit more, and I wouldn't sound like I'm about to fall asleep. But that's the only thing I would do different.
Okay.
Sing better.
Yeah, people with the perfect pitch are going to be totally pleased with our music, since we pitch corrected like 1/50th of the notes that were sung, and left the rest for fend for themselves, I guess.
Yeah.
What about you, Luke?
Yeah, there's nothing that I would change. I don't think, like, I'm happy with how this song is still today. There's nothing that I would change about it.
Nice.
Yeah. Cool. I'm with Dillon. I think the string swell up is it's my favorite part of the song. It is definitely reminiscent of moments on Born to Die by Lana Del Rey. There's some great or like cinematic strings on that album, and I think we were kind of evoking that, or at least in my mind we were evoking that.
Yeah, definitely.
With this song is also probably the most overtly Sufjan Stevens-y song we have. 5/4 time, trumpets,
a vibraphone being the accompaniment for a trumpet solo,
right? And like even just like
Sufjan.
the tone of the trumpet at the end and ending a song like that, like the nod is pretty heavy towards Sufjan. Which I mean, I have
no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
This is original.
Yeah, but if there's one thing I could change, I would have recorded Joey's trumpet with a dynamic mic instead of a condenser mic. At the time, I did not know that trumpets having high sound pressure, which just means they're loud, you need a mic that can handle that sound pressure. So a condenser mic is like a delicate mic that picks up details and vocals or acoustic guitars, whereas a dynamic mic is something you might put in front of a drum, like a snare drum, where it's like pop, and a trumpet is that type of thing. You want to have a mic that is prepared for that level of sound pressure. And so I noticed issues with those trumpets sitting in the mix because the waveform is lopsided, because the mic was not the appropriate mic to use. But I didn't know that at the time, and we only owned 2 mics, so did what we could. But other than that, no, I love this song. I think it's one of the most colorful songs on the album. Between the drums have such depth, and that snare really has the pep to it, and obviously the strings are just a rainbow of color once they swell in. So yeah, I really love this song. Good work, guys.
Yeah, likewise, Rick.
Good work.
Yeah. All right. Well, this has been fun. Join us next time for episode 4, where we will be talking about Hello Conscience, which is where you first hear old young Riley singing lead. So we look forward to talking about that one. That's a spicy one.
All right, cool. Thanks, guys.
All right.
Thanks. Wash your hands.
Wash your hands.